Hi guys, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are
Hi,
you going?
Sydney.
Good. Hi. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank
Of course.
you.
So to start us off, you guys are both currently starring in the all-new thriller Bloody Hell. Ben, to start us off, can you tell me a little bit about your character Rex and what he goes through throughout the course of the film?
Yeah, sure. So Rex is a character. When we meet him, he's just come out of jail and is somewhat infamous throughout the town of Boise, and effectively wants to get away from it all. So decides to go on a holiday, a sojourn to Finland, Helsinki, hoping to get away from everything, and unfortunately finds himself in a much worse situation. And the story unfolds. Yeah.
It's a very interesting story, I must say. We meet Alia in the very beginning of the film, and it opens up this super mysterious and almost unsettling plot for her. Meg, how would you describe her character?
Well, she is very much a victim of her circumstance. She's sort of grown up in a very unusual way with not many other influences from the outside world to inform her that the way that she's grown up is not very normal. Surrounded by psychopaths. So she's sort of a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome victim, and she's very, regardless though, very positive and has a very idealistic attitude towards escaping and trying to make a heaven out of her hell, I suppose, which is one of her best qualities.
Absolutely. Now, Ben, throughout the film, we see this kind of second version of Rex that seems to exist in his head and spends a lot of time talking to him. Ben, in your opinion, what was the meaning or significance of this? Because it created a really interesting edge to the film and his own perspective.
Hmm. I think as a convention, it was very useful to stop the film to keep the film buoyant and to keep its energy and drive going as well. Um, but ultimately, character-wise, the conscience is a symptom of his PTSD. It's kind of the physical manifestation of what he had to go through to make some of the actions and some of the atrocities he had to commit over in Afghanistan, potentially what would be considered war crimes, um, to make them acceptable in his own mind. He had to fragment a part of himself that ended up kind of doing those things, and that's kind of the conscience that we meet, and that's the conscience that we spend time with in the film. But yeah, as a convention, it definitely helped. I mean, I was really grateful for it because I'm sort of sitting there thinking, God, if there was no conscience and it was a film about just Rex 20 sort of 20 to 30 minutes in, we'd just be watching this poor guy die for 40 to 60 minutes until he cuts himself down. Like, that's exhausting to watch and to act as well. So yeah, having very grateful for the conscience kept it interesting. Yeah.
This is a very unique project in some amazing ways, and you both play very unique characters. What I'm curious about is what drew you both to this project, and what was your process like in preparing for it?
What drew me to the project was kind of pretty much that the opportunity to play two roles at the same time. Kind of two sides of the same coin. Ultimately, that was really interesting to sort of also see if you can do it. It's a real challenge. And a lot of the prep in getting ready for this part was ultimately that kind of figuring out what that relationship was between these two pillars of the film. Really, that relationship's kind of central, and we spent so much time with them. So getting that right was a massive focus. What the nature of it is, what it was, his PTSD, and etc. etc. And then also physically preparing for it. I had a good 3 months before we started this that I kind of, after a conversation with our director, it was agreed upon that I would start hitting the gym and start eating chicken and broccoli, which is about as much fun as it sounds. But it's over now, and I'm glad I did it.
It was enjoyable to watch him do that and suffer through that, but
I bet it was for the sadist out there.
no, he did
Earlier,
work very hard. He did work very hard.
That's
I joined
impressive.
in on some of those gym sessions and regret it.
How about you, Meg? What was your process like?
So I sort of came on, once I came on to the film, obviously the accent and the language was a big part of my job So that was, you know, a good solid chunk of time working with a dialect coach. And she was amazing. She really, you know, got us over the line, I think. Very tough lady, but very good at her job. So, you know, we stayed in the accent as much as we could. It was a lot of, you know, Skype sessions, classes, and her being on set then. But it was good. I mean, I had the whole camaraderie of having all of the family with us on the same sort of journey, you know, struggling to get rid of our Australian accents, basically.
You're all in it together in that sense. I absolutely love that. A very unique thing about this movie is that the plot is incredibly sinister, but at the same time, there's a huge degree of comedy in it, especially with Rex. And there's really just a lot of comedic relief and some lighthearted moments, which is really interesting for a horror film. What was it like to channel this contrast for both of your characters?
I would say it was. It's kind of amazing. It's a really lucky. It's a really fortunate thing. I think the two kind of go really well hand in hand, comedy and horror. You know, they're a really lovely reprieve from each other. You know, they're kind of polarizing aspect. I mean, I've never seen a romantic horror, you know, type thing. So, you know, these comedy horrors, they're kind of on both ends of the spectrum. So I think it's really great. You know, there's this old thing, a lot of people say when you're doing like Shakespeare work that, you know, you treat the tragedies like they're comedies and the comedies like they're tragedies, you know, and your approach to it, sensitivity around the work, and that'll ultimately make them shine. And I think that's present in a film like this, you know, with the absurdity of what happens. If we play the absolute truth of it, you know, people go along with the absurdity and you laugh about the absurdity of it, not one's portrayal of it. So I think, you know, and it's very easy to get behind. In certain ways, it's much easier to commit to certain things when the stakes are through the roof, et cetera, knowing that that it will be funny, or it's for comedic purposes, or it is absurd. The more you sell it, the more absurd it appears. I think, I don't want to speak for you, Meg, but there's a moment, like, you know, watching Meg's character, Alia, genuinely fall for this guy in these scenarios, like her playing the truth of that makes it so funny and so preposterous and so absurd. But it's because you as an audience, you believe it. Like, you go with them on that and you're like, you catch yourself going like, hang on a minute, hang on. I mean, it's so believable, but it's so ridiculous.
What are they doing right now?
I know, it's like you get swept up in it.
Program.
Yeah,
it's like,
it really draws you in.
Anyway, yeah, I think, yeah, the lighthearted moments, they're such a gift, and they were really welcome to play. Yeah.
How about you, Meg? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think what Ben said, the more genuine it was, particularly for Alia, the more that her innocence and everything was portrayed, the more funny it became. I think an audience believing her, you know, there's a scene where she's assisting Rex with an injury, and I think that whole sequence is so funny to watch. But in my head playing that, I was like, she's there to do a job, that's her task, and she's going to do it to the best of her ability. And so watching her commit to that, not knowing all of the other, you know, themes that might be going along with that scene, you know, that it makes it humorous because she's committing solely to a task, but to other people watching, they understand what's going on.
Absolutely. You guys, this film is fantastic, and you both do such an incredible job in it. It's amazing to watch because the visuals and just the way you interact, it's so beautiful. I'm so excited for everyone to see it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your night.